Good morning. Welcome to the Path of Wildness meditation. I don't know why I can never remember the day. What is the day? Today is the, well, it doesn't help. Oh, July 20th. There it is. July 20th, 2016. The Path of Wildness is a movement of equanimity. A movement here and here, body and mind. That sounds so touchy-feely to say it, a movement of equanimity. It sounds like I'm about to ask you all to get into the downward dog position and meditate on your navel, and I won't. Not that I'm necessarily against that kind of thing. I've just never found it to be very fruitful. I wanted to say empirically fruitful. I guess I really am quite tied to the real world, and I'm not very interested in solutions that offer an intangible result. I wonder if that's a... Let me check my wallet. I've got my wallet. I wonder if that's a... Yeah, I got it. I wonder how biased I am in that capacity. I wonder how much I'm missing out on as a result. I might be missing out on stuff, but the trick is, how do you know if it's real stuff that you're missing out on versus just stuff that you made up that just feels good? You know, words that sound good. I think that's a dangerous avenue to go down. The pathways of imagination, feel good, touchy-feely imagination stuff. I don't trust those avenues, and I may indeed be missing out on something as a result. So I'm stuck with my path of wildness, which is an empirical walk and effort to maintain equilibrium too, and balance. There are 3 objectives and 7 principles on the path of wildness. The 3 objectives are as follows. First, over the course of our lives, to develop and maintain good, sound principles. These are the 7 principles I mentioned. Those are the ones that I've come up with. And then to live life according to those principles. The important part is to keep refining them, making them better along the way. Second objective is to develop and foster good emotional responses to the situations of our lives, which is really all we can do. There's so much that's utterly outside of our control. And one of the things that happens is we get so upset when things don't go the way we want them to. So, and we're gonna be upset when that happens. It's not very much fun when things don't turn out. When my car breaks down at the side of the road, or I get fired from work, or... Funny when I said that. I said get fired from work, because there's this, you know, I almost want to beep, 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 doop, ding, you know, all this superstitious stuff, you know, just because that would be a devastating thing for me, my family, especially at this point in our lives. And it's funny how when I said that, this little thing rose in me. Oh, that's a good example, you know, controlling my emotional reactions. That's what number 2 is, controlling the emotional reactions. When I said, you know, getting fired, it rose in me and saying, oh, panic, you know, what if I lost my job? You know, what if they fire me today? And then I said, oh, I said it, you know, I'm inviting the demons, you know, Satan's out there, or whatever bad forces, malevolent forces. And you're afraid of losing your job? Like you didn't know that already. You're a supernatural entity, and slide into my life and, you know, cause the chain of events to occur that leads to my losing the job. You know, I don't believe that stuff, and that's why I actively invite those things into my life, which may actually be folly, because if there's something to the idea of us setting up mental states that then precipitate reality, which isn't supernatural, that would just be, you know, setting the stage. I'm off target. But the good thing is, see, now just now, I had that reaction. I felt that with something called a pre-passion. It rose inside of me. Oh, hey, I'm going to lose my job. I said it. And then you stop and wait a minute. I'm not going to run away with this. This isn't going to develop I'm not going to allow the pre-passion to develop into a genuine passion or panic, runaway emotion. I'm going to moderate that and say, wait a minute, Kurt. First of all, before I even begin, thinking about why that's irrational, just chill. Don't let this run away. Don't run away with this emotion. That's the first step. And then to use a little empiricism, a little reason. But empiricism, just reason to talk about why that's not necessarily the true thing. It doesn't make sense that just saying that would bring about my losing my job. I could go into more to that, but that would become another video. But there is no, just briefly, there is no evidence that there are supernatural forces. There is no, and that these supernatural forces play a malevolent role in our lives. And we'll be on the watch for anyone who would make a foolish slip up of the tongue, say something like, you might lose your job, and then to cause that to happen. There's just no reason to believe that actually is true. So there you go. So you want to do the same thing with this second objective, good emotional reactions. You want to do the same thing throughout the day and throughout our lives. Watching for those pre-passions, a rise of emotion, and then put a cap on it to a degree, but also temper it with reality. And if there's nothing you can do about it, if it turns out it is a genuine, realistic fear, something, or it's really happening. What if I go in and I do, in fact, lose my job today? Well, first, I wouldn't ascribe that to any supernatural force, but I would deal with that reality, which is all I can do. And I would not, again, let my emotions run away, which serves no useful purpose. So that's the second goal, is the cultivation of good emotional reactions. Second objective. The third objective, and it's really key, it's really all we can do. It's the thing that the Stoics talked about so much. That's all we can really manage in our lives, is our response to the world. The third objective is to perform good actions. Be charitable, be kind, hold the door over others, pick up a bit of plastic or trash if you see it on the side of the road. Be on the lookout for those who are in pain. Be generous with your resources and time. These types of things. Now let's get into the 7 principles. The first of these is the atomic principle, which basically states that the universe consists of atoms, which in turn consists of subatomic particles, which are just frozen energy. So you have this universe that is a state of frozen, you have a state of energy and matter that flow and change and transition all the time, leaving us with when we see that, we will not expect things to stay the same forever. For example, material items. I was at the beach yesterday, sitting on a rock outcropping in the water, having a wonderful time. One of those high moments of my life, climbing out of the rocks after an hour and a half, pounding my way through the ocean, a beautiful solo ocean swim along Laguna Beach, pounding my way out like a sea lion climbing out of the sea like a sea lion to lay on the rocks. And I looked at I think it's called the breccia, the mix of stones down there that conformed the rocks that I was sitting on, which were part of an ancient mudslide. And I was thinking about looking at the rocks themselves and the solid mud now, this conglomerate, and I was thinking about the rocks that formed that, which were themselves sedimentary, which spoke to time after time of eons of time and change and transition and all the life that went with that. And when that happens, the issues of the day pale in comparison. And it's not necessarily a way, this perspective of the atomic nature of the world isn't a way to escape reality, but it is a way to put it into perspective, which is a useful thing. So I expect change. I expect that what I am today was something else yesterday, and will be again something else tomorrow. And then if I have something to say or do, I better do it now. Because the person that is in a position to do that will not be around for long. That's the atomic principle. Second principle is the principle of nature. Not necessarily nature as we use it in the one term. It's the secondary meaning of nature, which is the character or qualities or attributes of a thing or of an animal. That is, the principle of nature asks us to spend time to look at the world around us and to try to figure out the nature of things. You know, what's the nature of a tree? What's the nature of a vehicle? What's the nature of a butterfly? What's the nature of time? You know, these can be tangible or intangible quantities, anything at all. When we look at the nature of things, we can kind of get a better idea about what to expect in terms of their operation and how they fit into the world, this big puzzle. For example, the nature of a plant is to be stationary for the most part, to start as a seed or a spore, to grow, to respire, to reproduce, and then to die. The nature of an animal is to likewise be born or hatched, to then grow, to move around, to think perhaps in some way, to respire, reproduce, and then to die and move on. See, these are the natures of things. The nature of a rock is to be a solid of sorts, to be stationary, to be sedentary. You know, for almost, I like that, sedentary, sedimentary. Nature of water is to flow, to seek the lowest ground in a gravity well, lowest point of a gravity well, to conform to the environment in which it resides. Likewise, the nature of human beings. We have a nature as a species, which is fundamentally to make use of the apparatus of our bodies, which are evolutionary and have been adapted by evolution for our well-being. For example, the hands that we have, the feet, so we walk, we move, we hold things, we make tools, we manipulate the world around us, and most importantly, we use this big brain of ours to make sense of the world, to comprehend, you know, through looking at the nature of things, to seek after facts, which we can then use to construct arguments and make conclusions and predictions about the world, and then to basically solve problems. That's the main thing. Solve problems and work together as a community. And look where it's brought us. The nature, each individual has a nature as well. You know, all have some character about us that is either that's a combination of our nurture and nature, our genetics and our upbringing. That when we are honest with ourselves, if we follow that nature, we will thrive in the best way possible, even though we may not necessarily thrive in the most sanctioned way. We may not lead us to the most wealth or even security, but it may lead us down a path that is most satisfying. It's kind of a hippie, touchy-feely thing in a way, and it kind of worries me a little bit, you know, that path, because I don't want people to be irresponsible necessarily, but I also do not want them to sell their soul, so to speak, sell themselves out, sell their nature away for the price of security and comfort. So some balance there. That's the principle of nature. The next one, moving a little faster along, we're going to take a long time. Next was the social principle, which is the idea that human beings are social animals. We need one another to live, to thrive. And our best ends are social ends. If you can find work, perform actions, be a community member that helps to further the society and also the nature all around us, and that is the real, you know, the first use of the word nature, the natural world. And that's a life worth, that's a well-lived life. You'll also find that's a shortcut to virtue, which I'll talk about in the last principle. The next principle is the principle of temperance. It's the fourth. Temperance is nothing more than exercising restraint in consumption. You know, eating, drinking, playing, working, making love, sleeping, all these things in measured quantities, not overdoing it. Wait, today's the 20th? No, that's the first. I'm thinking I have a doctor's appointment. Sorry, multitasking. So when we exercise restraint, we are immediately performing a virtuous act because it takes effort. It's a difficult thing, and we are flexing our mental muscle in resisting the urge to indulge. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have fun and you shouldn't enjoy things, just don't do it in excess. And I think we all have a pretty good idea about what constitutes excess. So the opposite is also true, that indulging in when you do indulge, there's no virtue at all in that. You're just consuming. So there's not much satisfaction in that in the long run. There may be some immediate pleasure, but not much long-term satisfaction. Certainly will leave us feeling empty and, is the word vapid, just, you know, like a popcorn burp. There's nothing to, where did I come up with that? There's just nothing to it. You know, popcorn burp. So the next one, so exercising restraint, temperance. The next one is the great indifference. That's number 5, which is the great indifference is the nature of the universe. The universe is indifferent to us. Contrary is, although there's plenty of people that will tell you that the universe cares about us, that there's a God out there that really does love us and look after us, there's no good evidence at all to indicate that that's true. Now, I didn't say there's not evidence. There's some evidence, but it's not good evidence. Good evidence, of course, is evidence that that can be repeated, that can provide evidence that comes of experiments that can be repeated, substantiated, verified, and that provides predictable predictions, accurate predictions about the world. That's basically how science works. Science is the best method we have to understand the world. And there's no good evidence that there's anything such as a God out there, or that the universe has any caring whatsoever for us. The only place that we find something that is like that is among our fellow human beings, and maybe with our pets, mostly our dogs and cats, I guess. So recognizing that the great indifference is real is the type of thing that will cause you to appreciate your neighbor and your friend and your family member more, and be more willing to engage in those social ends, and also cause you to be more grounded in the real world. Number 6, sixth principle is the principle of reason, which I like to call the governing faculty, and I'm pretty sure I borrowed that from the Stoics, that term, probably from Marcus Aurelius. And reason, being the governing faculty, is the capacity that we have to understand the world. As I said before, to look for facts and to use those facts to develop arguments, which are basically premises that lead to a conclusion. And that conclusion can be verified, repeated, shown to be true, and also create predictions that are accurate about the nature of the world. So it's a system by which we use the facts of the world to make reasonable inferences about how things operate and what things are. That's reason. And when we operate in life from the perspective of reason, seeking after reasonable explanations for things, we'll be in a much better position to operate in the real world, rather than one that we've invented in our head for convenience sake, or by virtue of the fact that might be a little lazy and not willing to try. Things such as the proposal that the world is run by a god or gods, or that there's some celestial oversight of some sort that is keeping track of things, so we don't have to do the work ourselves or take the responsibility ourselves. So that's reason, the governing faculty, the tool by which we really understand the world. And lastly, there's virtue. Virtue is what I call, well, virtue is the purpose of life. Virtue is what we choose to make of our lives. It's what we choose to be our purpose. I almost wanted to say it's why we're here, but I don't believe that that's the case. I don't think there's a reason that we're here. We are simply here, and it turns out that it's a worthwhile thing to pursue virtue, which is virtue is defined as the